Now, Brimstone for me personally is one of the more interesting agents when we talk about Valorant. If we take a look at his pick rate, he doesn't look too good, right? I mean, next to Viper and Omen, Brimstone doesn't get too much love. I mean, Astra does have a lower pick rate, but it's mainly because if we take a look at, rank distribution, in lower ranks, people don't like to play Astra. That's for a specific reason, because Astra might be one of the most difficult agents to master, whereas Brimstone literally isn't, right? So, especially in the lower ranks, Brimstone tends to be picked way more than Astra. But the more you progress into the higher ranks, you really get to realize that Brimstone doesn't get picked as much in comparison to Astra. Astra really shines up in the higher ranks, where people actually, kind of understand all the fundamentals, all the good stuff that you need to know in order to play an agent like Astra. So, I think it's pretty fair to say that Brimstone is probably one of the least liked agents, or the least picked agents, at least in the spectrum of controller agents that we have right now in Valorant. However, and this is going to be a hot take, I think Brimstone might be one of the best controller agents, if not the best controller agent, in 90% of the cases. And I'm not capping here. I am 100% serious when I say I personally think Brimstone is the best. Now, I take esports and pro play and put it aside. I'm not talking about that aspect of the game. I'm talking about matchmaking, solo queue rank. That's where I think Brimstone is one of the best controller agents in my opinion. Now, let's take a look at his kit, right? Brimstone is as simple as it gets, right? He has his 3 smokes, which in comparison to Astra and Omen aren't even global. And then again, he's limited to 3, whereas Astra can smoke up to 5 times. Omen can smoke up to 4 times within a round. So he really doesn't look too good. And Viper has her enormous wall that she can literally lock down an entire site with. And in addition to that, she also has a smoke. So already, you kind of understand why Brimstone isn't liked too much if we just look at the smokes. Now, his other ability, Stim Beacon, might be the most useless ability. His molly is somewhat decent. It's way better than the Stim Beacon, but in comparison to all the other agents, these 2 abilities also don't look too good. Astra can obviously stun the enemies, and the best thing about her is, right, she can't suck them off. Omen has his flash and his teleport, which is way better than what Brimstone has to offer. And then Viper, again, I already mentioned the smoke, and she also has her poison, which literally might be the most disgusting ability in the entire game, because you can't do anything to prevent her from doing her lineups besides killing her before she does it. But if she gets down her poison, it's literally GG. You can't defuse the bomb. So he is kind of bad on paper. I'll give you that. Even though I'm saying that he is one of the best on paper, yes, he definitely looks like the worst. However, what nobody talks about, and you see what I did there, that's the title of this video. What nobody wants to tell you about this guy is the fact that 90% of the people that log in the Viper, that log in the Astra, even in higher ranks, right? I'm immortal myself. I play in these higher ranks where people should know the basics. People don't know fucking shit about Viper or even Astra when it comes to lineups, when it comes to actually knowing how to play the agent, yet people are forced to play them. Why? Because those are the best smoke agents, the best controllers in general. See, all of these games show people that were forced to play a controller agent they couldn't play. Why? Because usually in solo queue, people tend to insta-lock duelists or, sentinels, initiators way more than they do insta-lock controllers. Usually finding a good controller main in solo queue is way tougher than finding a good duelist. So naturally, people, if this role is left open, are going to force the random that probably doesn't know how to play controller as much as, a controller main. They force them to play Astra or Viper. Why? Because those are considered to be the top tier picks, regardless of whether Astra is the most complicated agent in the game or Viper literally needs her lineups on lockdown, her fucking wall setups on lockdown. People force them to pick these agents, and that's gonna be the result of people picking these agents. Again, those are all games in which people didn't necessarily want to play the agent, but they got forced to by their teammates. And this is where we have the discussion of Brimstone actually being insanely good, even in higher ranks, for people that don't main these controller agents. I'm not talking about people that are the biggest Viper main since day one, the biggest Astra main since her release. I'm talking about everybody else. I'm talking about everybody who usually doesn't play controller as their main role. Yes, Brimstone might be the most basic agent. On paper, he even might be the worst one. Again, as we said, he doesn't really look good when we take a look at his abilities in comparison to what other agents have to offer. Yet, he's also one of the most brain dead agents to play. Like literally, all you have to do is whip out the iPad and just click and point your abilities. That's all you have to do. It's so easy to throw smokes, whereas an Omen, I've seen the biggest, you know, fuck ups that people have done on Omen. And literally, don't even get me started on Astra. I've seen the most interesting creatures playing Astra, literally throwing walls in the opposite direction, throwing their smokes instead of sucking the enemies, or stunning the own teammates while we're about to push aside. Or, you know, Viper, I've seen so many walls that actually don't cover anything. And even the lineups, I've seen people lose so many rounds because people always miss her poison lineup in an afterplan situation. It's so many fuck ups that can happen with these agents, whereas Brimstone, yes, he doesn't have global smokes, which is obviously a bad thing, don't get me wrong. He doesn't have more than 3 smokes, but it's simple, it's to the point, you can't really make a mistake. And then also his stim beacon, right? All you have to do is literally throw it on the ground. Like, you don't even have to get a lineup, nothing. All you have to do is throw it on the ground and your teammates get a buff. Even though it's not the best ability, it's simple, it's basic, it's straight to the point. His molly is actually a pretty good ability. It can be used to prevent pushes, it can be used in an afterplan situation. Even though you only have 1 molly compared to Viper, it's still a strong tool. And I'd say the same thing about his ult, actually, to clear some space or for afterplan situations. His ult is pretty good. So overall, you know, what I'm trying to say is with Brimstone, you have no surprises, right? Brimstone, it's straight up, you know what you get when picking this agent, which cannot be said about, you know, Viper, for example. You never know what you get with a Viper player or an Astra player. It's always, you know, can he actually play the agent, can he not play the agent? So to get back to my point, I'm definitely convinced that 90% of the time for non-controller mains, it's actually better to pick Brimstone rather than picking Viper, Astra, or even Omen. There are obviously exceptions like Breeze, for example, where Viper is literally so strong just because of the fact that her role literally can take an entire side by its own. This is a case in which Brimstone definitely wouldn't be the better pick, regardless of the fact that you might not be able to play Viper to her fullest ability. But we are not talking about exceptions. Again, it doesn't take much to master a Brimstone, where in comparison to even an Omen, Omen might look easy. But to actually be a good Omen, a useful Omen, it's not really that easy. Like, there's a reason why Flexinja is considered one of the best Omen players, because he has a certain aggressive playstyle. His playstyle is the reason why Omen is so good when he's playing him, because he knows how to play aggressive, when to play aggressive, and that's not something that people who just casually play Omen because they have to know. Same goes for Viper. Viper is insane because of her lineups, because of her wall placements. People that just play Viper because they have to, they don't know most of this stuff usually. Astra is the same thing. Brimstone, you usually know what to do. All you have to do is literally point and click on his iPad, just throw smokes, throw, you know, his stim beacon, use his molly. You don't even need lineups most of the time, but it can be used as a lineup. And then his ult is probably the most simple thing as well. In afterplan situations, it can literally save you the rounds. So he is actually pretty decent. Yes, you will be more limited when you have a Brimstone in the team in comparison to a Viper or Astra, obviously, right? Since they have more abilities to smoke off, to, you know, just get more control of the site. But all of that is essentially worth nothing if people don't actually know how to use these abilities to its best capacity. And that's again where Brimstone comes in being strong, because he can be stupid. You can be the most brain dead player and still be useful as a Brimstone in comparison to a Viper, for example. So yeah, in a perfect world, obviously, let's take a perfect world where everybody can play Viper, Astra, and Omen to its fullest potential. Obviously, Brimstone is going to end up as the worst out of these 4. That's what I said in the beginning. On paper, he is definitely the worst. If the paper actually is the reality, well then yeah, obviously this video would be useless. But usually, just because it's good on paper doesn't mean it's good in reality. So what I'm trying to say is, I'd rather have a bad Brimstone than a bad Viper or a bad Astra, because at Brimstone at least you can still throw your smokes without actually fucking them up most of the time. You can still use your stim beacon, your ultimate, because it's all point and click. And that's like the biggest reason why I personally think that Brimstone might be one of the best controllers if you again are not a controller main. Obviously, for all the controller mains, forget about Brimstone. Literally everybody else is better, but for everybody else, in a scenario where you don't know too much about the agent, Brimstone is actually a solid pick, in my opinion, the most underrated controller. He could obviously use some buffs, right? For example, with his smokes, make them global instead of being restricted, and then also the amount of smokes. If he has 4 smokes rather than 3, I feel like that would be a sweet change, and make it just like with Omen, for example, where you have to recharge your smoke rather than use it instantly. That would make it more balanced. But overall, Brimstone is, in my opinion, still a pretty decent pick in high elo even. I could do these type of videos with other agents as well, where I talk about, you know, duelists, initiators, and sentinels, kind of pick out the weakest link there and talk about why he could be potentially still good. Let me know in the comments down below if you would actually enjoy these type of videos in future as well. As always, thank you so much for watching, especially if you made it till here. Much love goes out to you guys, and yeah, I catch you on the next one.